Today on Everyday Tactical Vids, we're going to be looking at the Loyal Blades Tusk survival knife.
All right, let's talk through the specs here. First thing I'll tell you is that the knife is made in Spain. 440C is your steel, and I put a link down below so you can actually read on their website why they chose 440C and the type of 440C that they're actually using. So a lot of thought went into it when they put this knife together and why they would actually use that type of steel. So I think a lot of people are well aware that 440C can be a very good steel for outdoor knives, survival knives, things like that. Okay, that being said, knife length end to end, 12 inches, 7 inches of blade. If you measure it with a tape measure from this end to the tip, it's going to come out to about 6.5, but take into account you have a curve there and a little bit of recurve as well, so that's going to add the extra half of an inch. We do have a lanyard hole here and a lanyard hole here. There's also some jimping here on the top, a couple little spots for a little extra texture when you're holding the knife, and then underneath the same thing. I like the jimping on this knife a lot. Not super aggressive, but does give you a little bit of something extra to basically, get a hold of when you're actually using the knife. Black linen micarta handles. They have steel bolts that run through, and you can see those nice red liners as well. There is a choil here. It's going to make sharpening the knife easier, and also you can choke up to hold the knife like so. And flipping it over to the back side here, you can actually see the Loyal Blades Tusk logo. Let's talk through your sheath options. You have Kydex and leather as well. They both have fire steel holders included, and you will get a fire steel included with the knife. The Kydex is cool because it has a tech lock system, but it's a tech lock system that has been thought through before they just threw a Blade Tech lock on it. So let me show you that on the back. You can see there's this metal mounting system, and the metal mounting system allows you, because of the cutouts within this, basically underneath the tech lock right now, you can mount the tech lock at a lot of different angles. Sometimes people just grab a tech lock, drill some holes in a sheath, and then say, okay, now it's ready for a Blade Tech lock. That is not the case always, because sometimes you can't line up more than one or two of the holes. This one is set so you can mount it at a ton of different angles, and they've gone through the process to make sure that they are properly aligned. So you're gonna mount your tech lock to this metal plate and then attach the metal plate to the actual sheath. It does come with some paracord here, so you can wrap that around your leg. And the cool thing about a tech lock, if you've never used one before, is that basically you're gonna roll that down, squeeze this together, and now you can take it off of your belt very easily. And you don't have to take your belt off in order to get the knife off. So that's your Kydex option. Here is the leather option. So it does have a snap here to retain the knife. The knife is gonna slide into here. Like I said before, you have a fire steel that comes with it and the fire steel holder. You do have some paracord down at the bottom there, so you can tie it around your leg. You have a pocket here. Inside the pocket, you're gonna get a stone for sharpening the knife. I just slid the striker for the fire steel in here as well. You're also gonna get a hex wrench, which I'll show you what that's for in a minute. I do wanna mention really quickly that I just slid this in here for kicks now, but the knife does have a 90-degree spine. Flipping it over here, you can see nice leather on the back. There's your paracord for tying it around your leg, and you've got a loop here. Now some people, when they see this, they're gonna say, oh, that's awesome, but I just wish they set it up as a dangler system. That's like one of those 6 in one, half dozen in the other. Some people like a dangler, some people don't. You're gonna add extra costs to the knife by adding a dangler system in, but I love the fact that they do give you multiple options for your sheaths. You can get one, you can get the other, you can get both. So lots of different ways to set up your knife when it comes to actually carrying it. Here's what the knife looks like in the leather sheath. So you unsnap this and draw out your blade. I don't see any plastic liner inside this portion, the inner portion of the sheath, but there's also some nice welts along the side, so it doesn't look like you're having any issues as far as the knife and the blade cutting the sheath as you draw out the knife. Here's a look at it in the Kydex sheath. So there it is, drawing the knife out and then placing it back in. And it doesn't click into place, but it will stay securely as long as you crank down these bolts effectively. So if these are really loose, you're gonna have more movement of the knife, but I've cranked them down decently hard, and I have no concerns whatsoever. I mean, if I went tumbling down a hill, I still don't think this thing would fall out of the Kydex sheath. Let me show you real quick as I roll back the Blade Tech lock, and that's how easily you can take this thing off of your belt. Two final details on this knife. First, the weight is 0.75 pounds, and secondly, they're calling this a high flat grind. We've talked about the details, now let's put the knife to use. Starting off here, working on a little bit of that detail work. Again, this stick is kind of big to be called a feather stick, more like a feather log, but so in this test, we're thinking about comfortability, also the ability of the blade to get some of those fine shavings. I am choking up using the choil here. I'll switch around a little bit. Let's go to the other side here. I can tell you already that the handle is very rounded, so I'm not feeling any edges, you know, in my hand here as I'm actually using the knife. Let's just hold it normally now in the handle and see how that works. You do have to kind of shift your angle just because of the weight of the knife and such. You can see it's definitely doing that work. We'll do a little chopping now, and I'll hold it first like this, and then I'll kind of choke back using the lanyard and let it swing a little bit more freely. That external portion was really rotted. It gets a little bit harder on the inside, so this will be a better test, I would say. So it just naturally wants to shift back like this, especially when I have the lanyard, so I can get some more chopping power. So I'm gonna actually start doing that now. Here's a close-up look at the work we just did with the Loyal Blades Tusk survival knife. So is this knife a chopper? I would say it can function in that way, but I wouldn't want to use it on a regular basis as a chopping tool. It just doesn't have the weight. I think you got to be over a pound usually to really have the weight, so when you swing the knife, it's really getting that momentum and chopping and cutting deeply into the wood. It can do that, as you saw, and I chopped a little bit more off camera to see how it works. But I would say this is it's going to be more effective at batoning, will be my guess, and we'll see that in a minute, as well as that methodology. Let me just take this off here. That methodology of, you know, if this is your tree, putting it in, batoning it in, changing the angle, batoning it up, and taking chunks out of a tree as opposed to swinging and chopping like this. It just doesn't have the weight to do that. Pluses and minuses to that. Some people want a knife that can chop down a huge tree, but then you're not gonna be able to do more of that fine detail work. I don't think this thing is really built to be a chopper, but as you saw, it can do the job. But I would say if you're counting on doing a lot of chopping of things down or chopping up wood, probably want to be an axe or a hatchet or something else. We're going to try that other method of kind of taking out chunks of the wood and see how that works, getting through this log. That's probably about, let's say, 4.5 inches across maybe. Here's a look at the work we just did. And you can see it definitely cut quite effectively into this log. I was just making a lot of noise, so I wanted to tone it back a little bit. There are people jogging and walking in the woods here, so I want to give them some peace and quiet. We're going to move on to some batoning now. So clearly these pieces of wood are not super wide, but just to get a sense of the strength of the blade, maybe any flex or weak spots. And as you can see, even though the wood is not super wide, it's definitely dense. Getting the job done there. We're going to actually baton my baton. This is a piece of maple. Baton this one now. All right, we'll baton it again. Replace that blade. All right, let's see the back of the spine here as far as throwing sparks for your fire steel. So you see you can do that. So no problem with that. Definitely got a 90-degree angle to get some fires going. All right, let me show you another feature of this knife. So as I mentioned before, it does come with this hex wrench and a sharpening stone. So that's kept in the pocket here on the sheath. Take out the hex wrench, take out the 3 bolts that are in the handle, open this up, and you can see we have a variety of wrench sizes here. So from smaller to the largest, and then kind of in the middle here, so a wide variety. You do have these tubes that run through, so it's going to keep the handle on very securely, but when you take it off, you've got these wrenches. You also have a square wrench here. Just another, it's some additional features built into this knife. One thing I'll show you is that this is the inside of the handle, flat there. There's nothing protruding out. So you could even inside this little notched out area put some hooks, put a couple extra survival items in there. You can't fit a ton in there obviously, but you could fit a couple extra things there in the handle. And remember that this is still a full tang knife. We're not losing the strength of the knife midway through the handle. It goes the whole way through, even though that is hollowed out there. Just a quick look here as I was kind of hanging out after I got done shooting the earlier part of this video. Just worked on some more feather sticks. Carved basically like the tip of a spear, or if I was going to make a frog gig or something like that. So just use the knife a bit more to test it out. All right, so let's wrap up here talking about the Loyal Blades Tusk survival knife. So a couple thoughts. First thing is that I often get knives for review. I'll take them out and test them for a bit, and then I'll actually shoot the review, and then sometimes I'm just done with the knife. It's not because it's a terrible knife, though sometimes that is the case for some knives. But more times than not, I'm just like, yeah, it's cool, but it doesn't intrigue me enough to continue to engage with the knife in the future. This knife has me engaged. This knife has me intrigued. So I've used it, now I've reviewed it, and we're gonna keep using this and to get a better sense of what I think of it overall. So that to me is a win right there, because I have lots of different knives that I've had a chance to review and use, and this one has me intrigued enough that I want to keep kind of digging into the features and how it functions. So pluses, I think the overall fit and finish is excellent. It's a very good looking blade. I love the handles, very comfortable. Again, for me, that's a big deal. I find that sometimes handles are just too small for me, and this one I think is going to work well for a lot of people. I like the fact that they utilize inside the handle. Now that's not going to save the day probably for most people as far as having some extra wrenches, but it does show that they gave some thought to using all the space effectively, and I probably will put a little bit of survival gear in there. Jimping is appropriate. It's not super aggressive, it's not super dull, so that's nice. Now I find myself when I'm holding the knife naturally gravitating to holding it like this as opposed to like this on the handle. That's probably just a thing for me.
Maybe that's how I feel most balanced, but even when I did hold it like this, it still does cut quite effectively. I can tell you that I'm not like a huge metals guy, like as in I don't study all the different types of metal. I know what steels have worked well for me and what steels have not worked as well for me. But I am going to dig into this one a bit more, because when I was talking to my friends over at Loyal Blades, they were talking about the specific, again, 440C that they chose, where it comes from, how it's all probably really the process of putting that type of steel together. And so I want to learn more about that, and because again, they put a lot of time and effort into choosing not just the features of the knife but also the type of steel. So I want to see, you know, what are the ins and outs of why they actually chose that type of steel for this knife. As far as the function of this knife, I'm going to say it falls into the category of a well-refined survival knife. Like a nice looking knife. It's big enough that you can do some harder work with it. It's not going to be a chopper. It's not going to be something that you're going to be doing a ton of detail work with, like if you had a knife that was maybe, you know, this big with a really fine edge. But it's going to function kind of across the spectrum when it comes to outdoor survival, camping, bushcraft, and those types of things. So it's going to really be a jack of all trades when it comes to how you can use it in the woods. As I'm wrapping up this video here, there is a huge pileated woodpecker, which are the, you know, like the huge ones, the big ones, right over here in a tree. He's making all kinds of noise, so you may have a chance to hear him. Last thing I'll say is that I like the sheath systems. You have Kydex, you have leather. Both of them have a bunch of features. You're not gonna be able to store a ton, obviously, in the Kydex sheath other than your fire steel and your knife, but you do have the tech lock that you can put at a variety of angles. And with the leather system, you do have that pouch in the front. You're holding it, you have a spot to hold the fire steel as well. One minor change I would add to both the fire steels is to put, instead of a like a cloth cord on it, is to put some sort of bungee on there so that you could wrap it around the bottom of the fire steel and it would lock into place. You wouldn't be as concerned about losing it. But those are minor things, and again, they're always trying to save costs when they're building a knife. So what are the things that everybody wants versus the thing that maybe somebody wants, things that are easy to mod on your own versus stuff that they should really be doing in the production process. Overall, Loyal Blades Tusk. I've liked it. It has me intrigued. I'm going to be using it more. And I've got a link down below if you want to head over to their website to A, find out more about these knives, or B, if you want to purchase one of them. You can get them with one sheath, both sheaths, lots of different options over there. So click the link down below and you can head over to their site and find out more about these guys and go ahead and purchase one if you're interested. Thanks as always for checking out the videos here on Everyday Tactical Vids. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram and Tumblr as well. Take care.